Okay, we're on. Mr. Muhammad, I'm going to have to mute you because there's a sound coming that's triggering. Okay. There's a sound coming, guys. I don't know where's it coming from.
Fine by me. There's no sound here.
Okay, great. Fine. Amazing. Okay, let's get started. So today's roundtable discussion is titled, How Can Family Offices Navigate the Crisis and Its Aftermath? Key Factors to Minimize Your Losses and Get Back on the Track of Long-Term Prosperity. So from the panelists, we have two right here, Mr. Khalid Al-Zayani, Chairman of Al-Zayani Investments, which operates a diverse portfolio of businesses in manufacturing, automotive, banking, healthcare, and real estate. And Mr. Talal Al-Ajou, Manager of the Investment Department of Al-Ajou Family Offices. Okay, so let's get started with the first question with Mr. Khalid. Mr. Khalid, you have a very diverse portfolio of investments. You're basically in every single industry that we can think of. Which industries or which investments are you going to be putting on pause this coming period?
Well, every industry has its own style and its own requirement. Banking is still going on in a limited state, not as bigger as it used to be, especially investment banking, because that relates to markets in the US and markets in Europe and more worldwide. Normal banking is steady, but reduced in volume. Industry, we are restricted because most of the industries that we operate relate to markets outside Bahrain in a great way. So with the bridge being closed, that has hurt our business because we couldn't export. And also it has affected our retail. For example, in the automotive business, not many people would buy a new car today.
Exactly.
Yes. So generally speaking, this is not a trend that only relates to Bahrain. This is happening worldwide. I mean, even in the companies that we own overseas in Europe or in the United States, we have, or in Turkey, we felt that the pinch has reached them too. So very difficult times. That's all I can say. Today we had a board meeting of one of our companies just before this meeting, and people are not, for example, people are not using restaurants. So the bottling industry has diminished in size because nobody goes to drink water in a restaurant. So how much water can you deliver? How much food can you deliver? So, as I said, hard times.
So, Mr. Khalid, your recommendation is to put everything on pause. That's how we're hearing.
No, what you have to do is, first of all, reduce your cost, manage your business in a lean and mean way, cooperate with your staff and make sure that you don't lose them because days will change and you would need them. Make them part of the team of restructuring your business. They must know that you are part of the people being hurt. I mean, if some advantages had to be reduced, you have to set an example and say, I, as an owner, I am reducing as well my lot out of the company by exactly the same percentage like everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Make them feel that they are within the family, not outside the family, and let them ride the same rough boat with you, not you alone.
Got you, Mr. Khalid. So before we move on to Mr. Talal Al-Aju, I want to welcome our other participants, Haneen Yunus, Managing Partner at Mina Partners Financial Services, Huda Lawati, Chief Investment Officer and Partner at Gateway Partners, and last but not least, Hassa Al-Ghareer, Director of Human Capital at General Civil Aviation in the UAE, the Queen of HR, who has been preaching a different song about human resources. So let's get to Mr. Talal Al-Aju real quick to comment on this. Mr. Talal, can you comment on?
So same question that you asked to Mr. Khalid. I think that we all, I wear two hats. I wear the hat of being a committee member and a board member for our operating business, and I handle the family office as well. So we have Chinese walls for both entities. Regarding the operating business, I agree with Dr. Khalid. You need to handle a lean machine, reduce your costs, reduce your fixed costs as much as possible, focus on having a sustainable business for the next couple of years. We have been focusing on healthcare, to be completely honest, for the past 35 years in terms of operating business, and we are expanding the healthcare value chain. So we used to be distributors for medical equipment, medical supplies only. The past 5 years, I started the program of investing in other vertical healthcare companies, whether it was in the manufacturing. We're doing the first biosimilar factory in the region. We are opening a medical equipment, medical supply manufacturing company. We did a logistics healthcare company, and we bought a couple of stakes in hospital service providers.
So that was right before COVID? That was right before COVID?
Right before COVID, and we are still continuing the program during COVID. And we're focusing on healthcare, to be completely honest, on the operating side. Now, if I wear my other hat, which is the family office, I think that you should always go back to your asset allocation. You should always go back to your investment policy statement. I personally do not think that you should pause. You should always allocate and diversify by vintage, because if you that's for the illiquid. So if you invest for a vintage 2020, you're going to have vintage 2020, 21, 22, and 23. So you can ride the whole wave. So I do not think that you should pause in your family office hat, but in your operating business hat, yes, you should put the brakes and focus on your business and not let it die down.
What are you putting the brakes on, Mr. Talal?
So in terms of operating business, we do not, we're not expanding to other industries. We're not going into construction. We're not going to oil and gas. Or automotive or whatever it is. We're just focusing on healthcare, and that's it for the operating business.
So pause on everything that's not necessary. Let's move on to Huda Lawati. Our question, Ms. Huda, is which investments or sectors do we put on pause right now?
I think it's not a question of which naming sectors that you put on pause, but it's more a question of what sectors are your priority. So there's, especially in families, you often have a lot of different sectors people are exposed to. Talal mentioned the focus on healthcare. I think that kind of focus is important. Whatever sector you think you know well and you can do well in, you should obviously focus on it. And try to create the efficiencies, optimizing cost structures, and readying it for the future. I think we all talked a lot about digitization trends. I think COVID has accelerated a lot of that, so people need to focus. And digitization doesn't just mean e-commerce, right? There's a lot of automation and technology that affects every industry, and I think just taking advantage of that is a good idea. Having said that, obviously there are areas that are going to be difficult for a longer period. We did an analysis when we looked at our portfolio here and seeing which industries will not in trouble, but will take longer to recover. And travel, for example, is one that the outlook for which is unclear. And I think if you are, or hospitality, if you are very much concentrated in sectors that don't have that, one-time hit with some recovery, but rather a prolonged hit with very slow recovery, then obviously, yes, you do have to think about pausing, revisiting, and diversifying. I think diversification comes in many ways. Some people have operating businesses that are, hedged. They do, let's say, in the consumer sector, they have staple and discretionary. Discretionary goes down, staple is defensive, and when times are good, discretionary growth, but staple usually has slow growth. That could be one way of diversifying within the industry, but with different parts. But if it's completely, like taking an example of travel and hospitality, you do have to look at, well, what do I have? Do I have assets, relationships? What else do I have that I can use to either diversify, or do I think of divestiture, or do I think of re-leveraging some of these assets in different ways? As an example, there was a company I deal with that does transport for Hajj and Umrah. And obviously been hit very, very hard with this downturn. And they're talking to companies that transport labor, companies that do school transport, to see how they can utilize their assets and base for that. Now, schools are also shut, but obviously they're going to come back, whereas the Hajj and Umrah is a more of a, you miss the Hajj season one year, you miss a lot of revenues. I think repurposing is another way of doing it. And certainly for family businesses, looking at the other side, the investment side as well matters, right? Most of the people are good about, if I invest in X region or Y sector, then my investment should be sort of hedged from that. I should not be deriving or doubling up the risk. But you'd be surprised. I find a lot of people who are hedged on both sides because they've invested in travel and hospitality. And then in terms of their investments, they've also, and it's not unusual, right? Because it's a natural tendency. I know this, so I'll invest here. They've also invested a lot in travel and hospitality, not just operating. I think that's a mistake. People who have done that should revisit their books, should reallocate, and should talk to investment partners, managers, whatever, to reconfigure their books.
So I'm gonna give you like one question. Just answer me with the least possible amount of words. So you're a venture capital and a private equity company. What company would you put your money into right now? From what industry, if they walk into that door right now? Give me one industry.
One industry.
One industry.
Healthcare and wellness.
Healthcare and wellness. One industry you wouldn't want to even speak to right now. Be like, come to me in a year.
Travel.
Okay. Moving on to Haneen Yunus. The same question applies to you, Ms. Haneen. Which industries or sectors do we put on pause right now?
Look, first of all, I'm not financial services. I know that you introduced me as financial services. That's not a problem. I actually match strategic partners from international.
That's what the company does.
Yes. So it's not a financial services company. So we match partners depending on industry sectors.
Okay.
And I work at a principal level, so I bring principals from the West into the region. Gotcha. I am noticing, again, I am not going to make any kind of a judgment call here because I really honestly don't know how this is going to look. And I cannot give any clarity as far as I know how it looks, because I get different kinds of feedback from a lot of different people, whether they're from the industry and from clients themselves. So I think there's a lot of confusion now. I think what Mr. Zayani's position is and Alam's position made a lot of sense because they're kind of focusing on the core, what they understand, and kind of keeping it under wraps and not doing anything new. And I'm noticing this a lot with people that I know. I'm noticing a thrust and an interest in technology suddenly. I mean, when I came with a technology deal 5 years ago, and it was a really good one from the UK, it was a pre-IPO, Literally nobody was interested. I had to talk to 70 families till I got two. Now, the same people are asking for quality technology in healthcare, quality technology in cybersecurity. They're asking for different technologies. So now I bet there's going to be a new rush now on technology, and there's going to be a lot of mistakes made in the same way because people are going to start getting all kinds of deals and they want to get into that sector. So everybody knows now that we've been forced into technology. I'm someone who's not good at all in technology. I still have a Samsung, so I'm not, but I am a business person. So I do understand the value. And I feel that everyone's now been forced into that field of technology. And it's just come at a rush to all of us. And it's almost like everyone that's done stuff online that I know that had companies online and that were doing things already online actually did very well in COVID. Very well. Better than what they were doing before COVID.
Exactly.
So I think, for example, I have a friend of mine, he owns a vintage luxury items. He sells Louis Vuitton, Chanel, and all of this. He sells it, vintage items. He has an online shopping, international shopping portal. And he told me we're doing really well. I said, why? I can't understand. He said, because it's revenge shopping.
Oh, yeah.
These women are really upset. They're really annoyed they can't spend money. They're stuck at home and they're buying handbags, they're buying stuff because they're pissed off they can't travel. I said, well, that makes sense because I'm one of them. Because I've spent so much money online in COVID. So I'm noticing that I'm getting this kind of things. I have people that are large VCs. They're noticing a lot on their online shopping, on their online healthcare, on everything online, healthcare advice online, and it's doing really, really well. Carrefour has doubled has maximized their income by 7,000 fold here in UAE alone on online. So there's different sectors that seem to be arising. I'm not an expert at any of them, and I don't know what it's going to look like. But I definitely think that the direction is very consumer related, very online related, and it's now incremental businesses where you can't plan for a really long time because of so many reasons, COVID, geopolitical, there's so many reasons. So I think it's more incremental businesses. This is what I'm noticing. I could be completely wrong. Again, I don't claim to be an expert. This is just what I'm hearing from the market.
So your role is to match partners together.
I match partners, for example, somebody that's coming in that wants to come into the region, a principal of a company that's successful abroad. It's very important they have their own money in their own game. They are already successful in their own markets, and then they want to meet strategic investors or strategic partners. I really am very cautious about that. I don't want to bring people that are not successful or are looking for money from here because they can't get it anywhere else. We all understand that very well. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I match partners in a variety of, I'm opportunistic and I do it in a variety of sectors.
So which sector, other than travel, would you be a little bit more cautious to get into right now to bring any partners from that sector into your current pool of partners?
Well, entertainment, definitely. I mean, I say this because I have a small company in Saudi that used to serve the entertainment business, which was booming. So I think that entertainment is like off the charts now. Anything that requires crowds. I'm not sure about investments, and I would not say that because I don't want to alter the opinion of any of the people or disrespect anyone's opinions. But I think long-term investments today that have very long lockups are something that I would think about.
So something that's more short-term, get in and get out.
You can't. I don't know if you would say short-term. I'm not a trader, but I just say things that are more consumer-based and incremental, and you have some form of a get-out or of a liquidity because it's so difficult to plan. I can't even plan my holiday.
Okay.
So it's very difficult to plan now years down the line because things are changing so rapidly and we're in a region that continues to face dramatic vulnerabilities and changes as we know. So I as someone, if it's my own money that I'm putting, I would look at certain sectors that are growth sectors and are consumer-based incremental sectors.
Great. So we're gonna move on to Ms. Hassa Jamal Al Ghareer with the same question. Sorry again about the missed introduction. So which industries or investments are you looking to put on pause right now, Ms. Hassa? If you can unmute, wait, hold on. I'm gonna try to help you out here. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, we're putting on pause anything that has to do with travel and leisure. We had a project outside the UAE and that's completely on pause. But mainly we're in the industrial, we're in industry and building materials. And that has been very tricky because there's a lot of projects have not stopped and then there are regions that have stopped. Exactly. But there's an opportunity now in the efficiencies in the supply chain. So I think there's going to be a lot of change and a lot of people are going to be your customers in any field that you have not expected they would be your customers.
Mm-hmm. So
can I interrupt?
Yeah, go ahead.
No.
Ms. Hessa, I'm very interested to understand because I have many clients in the construction and building material in Saudi, and I would be very interested what you're talking about in terms of peripheral businesses that are appearing in the sector, the clients that you didn't expect or businesses you didn't expect.
Well, because now everybody's looking for efficiencies in their supply chain. So they want to supply from people within the region, 1 day away, 2 hours away. That's the maximum. Before they used to supply from China, Italy. That's in my segment. So now they've been knocking the doors and asking if we can supply for them because they're not sure when they will get their supplies. So a lot is going to be transformed within this year and next year, and the shifts will be very interesting to see because we might be able to cater to regions we've never thought we would be able to enter.
Like which regions, Ms. Hassan?
For example, for example, like Pakistan, because India and China were at a complete lockdown. As you know, Bombay is still on lockdown because it's a red zone, and China stopped all its export. So people are going to look at who's closer to them. It's no longer price.
So going forward, you're seeing a shift from price sensitivity to geographical, perhaps, ordering
yes.
from, even if it's a little bit more expensive, but I'll get it when I can get it.
Yes.
Okay, with regards to travel, you just said with your position in travel and leisure, you're gonna calm things down. Don't you see maybe there's, with the opening of lockdown, maybe there'll be a movement for revenge travel? You're not seeing any of that on the horizon?
We don't know because travel is very linked to the aviation. Mm-hmm. And we don't know the number of flights. Will they go back to normal and how soon will that be? So it's linked to the ticket pricing.
Mm-hmm. Saying that ticket pricing is, they're saying, expecting it also to get a lot more expensive, which is
that's the thing.
Which is another bummer. I mean, you might be spending a lot of money just to get somewhere. I mean, do people really want to do this?
I doubt it.
So grim outlook for travel with the first round. We're going to go ahead with the next question. Emerging opportunities, how to make the most of new information for some new unexpected investments. Mr. Khalid Zayani.
Before addressing that question, I'd like to add to one other factor that we missed, but it was recalled on my mind because of these problems that exist. Today, if we travel, we have to be stuck in that country, or when we return home for the for 14 days or 10 days, whatever the rule of the country. And this is making life difficult. I cannot send a representative to handle my business in Saudi Arabia, and when he comes back, he is locked up for 10 days. That's making life difficult. And this has created a new industry, which is locating your own representatives within each country. So we have now representatives of our businesses in Saudi Arabia, in the UAE, And those people are our contacts with our customers in those countries. Uh, so our movement is limited. We cannot reach our customers except through video that we have seen today. This has changed the style of our contacts uh, and made us rethink how we can reach our markets within the GCC. Um, we took advantage of our experience in Investcorp. In Investcorp, since the Saudi Arabian market is so large, we well before this disease came into our country, our part of the world, we already had offices in Saudi Arabia serving the Saudi Arabian market. So we had a head office in Riyadh and offices in both east and west of Saudi Arabia. And in fact, we have more people working in the Saudi office placing our products more than the ones we have for the rest of the Gulf, because the market justifies that. So the logistics of any operation has changed simply because of the circumstance. Can I ask you for your question again?
What new opportunities are you seeing emerge because of all of the slew of information that's coming out? Are you seeing a particular area that can be surprisingly opportunistic that you might get lured to get into some new opportunities because of all the new information that's coming up, like Ms. Haneen Yunus talked about technology. What is it for you?
Well, anything to do with high tech, with energy saving, with solar panels for generating electricity. The price of energy in our part of the world is rising very high. In Bahrain, it's more like almost tripled. So there is a new industry which is growing, and I hate to tell you about it because we are already in it. And that is solar generation of electricity.
Okay.
We have already applied that on our plants, our Midal plant in Mozambique, where we are now producing our own electricity and actually selling it to the region. We're doing similar thing to our Midal cable manufacturing in Bahrain. We're fitting our showrooms with solar panels to take care of the huge load of air conditioning requirements that we require on each location. So these new technologies are worth investing in. The price of generating electricity through solar is now cheaper, I'm repeating it again, than actually using gas or using any other oil products. So these are new technologies, new things. Our children should be taught on how to look for new products, you can make an app and become a millionaire out of it. Why do you waste your time selling cars or operating factories? Your market is the world then. It's not just limited to the Gulf. I admire those new brains who came up with new ideas. We should be looking for out-of-the-box ideas. We told our board, which consists now of only our children, because we are retired, that you can keep our previous business, but your future lies in your own minds creating new.
Okay, Mr. Khalid, I wanted to ask you something. You just mentioned something about creating solar power in your plant in Mozambique and then transporting it back and selling it to the region. So
No, selling it the region within Mozambique.
Within Mozambique. So yes. Previously, storage of solar energy. I mean, they created some new cells that can store that, but it's been very expensive. How are you overcoming that in Mozambique, and how do you see the Gulf adopting that technology? Any timelines possible? Do you see it happening within a couple of years, maybe?
Well, solar energy savings is is becoming more realistic nowadays with new innovation, like you use that energy to lift water up a tank, and then that water drops during the evening, create energy through turbine. There are new technologies coming up. However, what is more interesting is that we still have electricity from the government. And if you need electricity, you can switch back to the government grid and operate if you don't have an alternative storage facility.
Okay, thanks a lot, Mr. Khalid. We're going to move on to Mr. Talal. Um, new opportunities.
So I completely agree with Dr. Khalid. I think any technology that disrupts old industries. So Dr. Khalid was talking about solar. I'll speak a bit more about healthcare, whether a new theme, which is telemedicine, which was working for quite some time, but because of the COVID situation, it is getting enhanced. Rather than just going to the doctor and wasting an hour in traffic or whatever, you can just do it through your phone or through your laptop. So any technology that disrupts old industries. Agri-tech is another big industry that I think will flourish and become huge, which is it's huge in the States, but I don't think it's that developed here in the region. So again, any technology that disrupts dying industries.
So when it comes to telemedicine, we noticed that right before COVID, it kind of meddled, or even it became like something a couple of years ago, and then it didn't become anything. Then when COVID started, because people couldn't go back to the hospitals, it boomed. But is it gonna continue booming when all of this is over, or is it gonna recede back?
So this part of the region is out of, I won't speak about this part of the region, but let's take Japan or the States, where demographics are more older than this part of the region. I think in those parts of the world, telemedicine will still become big after COVID, because instead of an older guy going to the doctor and wasting time, he can just do it through the phone. So I think this part of the region, it's still too early to adopt, but in the States or aging populated countries, it will continue to grow.
Great. We're going to move on to Huda Lawati with the same question. New opportunities on your radar, Huda. What are you seeing amongst the new?
Yeah, two parts to this question. I think the first, what you're seeing, I think obviously what was talked about so far, new technologies, telemedicine, solar power, all these are very interesting and growing. And I think even pre-COVID, the cost of solar has come down so much that it's become a real option for a lot of people, and obviously it has the benefit of positive climate impact. But I think the other area which is interesting to look at, and Hassan alluded to that quite a bit, is security. I think people have become insecure when it comes to their supplies. Either because they got this, the early part of the crisis from China and that was an issue, or because they got it from abroad or from far away and the supply chains were disrupted. So I think shortening supply chains and diversifying supply chains are two very big trends that we're going to see. It's not sensible to project a complete shift in where capacities are set up. People have spent a lot of capex in China, for example, a lot of capacity sits there, and I don't see that changing overnight. But in terms of new capacity, you will see people going for alternative sources to what they had in the past, regardless of whether that was China or something else. They're just going to want to have more than one source of raw material or whatever they need. they're also going to go for shorter supply chains because the disruption has shown people that distance and delays can be very difficult, especially when people are going towards optimization and just-in-time inventory. So instead of just-in-time, more in a just-in-case scenario. And governments will also play a role there. We saw a little bit of protectionism. I think the card for governments to be protectionist has been provided by COVID because I think India did it very early on. They supply about 40 to 50% of APIs, active pharmaceutical ingredients globally, and they banned export of 20 of them very early on, I think in April. So I think you'll see more protectionism, and all of that will create opportunity for making some of these things available in proximity or locally, one or the other. It means that there will be additional venues to invest in traditional sectors, not just in new areas. And I think that that's going to be seen across different industries. Some technologies will also benefit from that. I think Salah alluded to ag tech, and I think that's something that has seen a lot of push in the GCC, for example, and it was something we were focusing on, but obviously as we look at this security element, it becomes something that we cannot grow naturally a lot of the crops that we consume, but we can start looking at ag tech, we can vertical farming, we can look at a lot of it. So a lot of those areas will get fuel in terms of interest. But a word of caution on this, because I sit in this investment area, I see a lot of ideas and proposals and businesses. And one example is which obviously saw a great level of growth because of COVID. Now that's a sector I know really well because previously when I was at Civil, I researched it for 2 years. I spoke to everyone, Chicago, Fresh Direct, Walmart, everyone, a lot of people in the world.
Can you time out for a second because your voice is kind of not clear, and I have a feeling you're about to say something very profound, so you can get close.
Sorry, is it better now?
What is the sector you're talking about?
Can you repeat that?
What is it?
E-grocery.
Ah, yes, of course. Because we can't hear you. Your voice is bouncing.
Let me see if I can make this. Okay, close it. Is it better now?
Yeah, it's better. It's better.
So on e-groceries, a sector I know pretty well. I used it because when I was at Savola, I was looking at it very closely, and I spoke to the Ocados, Fresh Directs, Tesco's, Walmarts of the world, and there's a level of execution complexity with that industry. However, during COVID, I saw IMs and teasers from all sorts of companies that are growing at 5x and 7x and 8x. Some of those companies are genuinely good and they've had an acceleration and they may be interesting investment venues, but others are honestly just benefiting from the fact that there's so much demand, there's not enough supply, and these are not companies that would survive because their execution capability or their technology or their optimization is not there.
Mm-hmm. Ms. Hanius, you have something to say about that?
I totally agree because I've seen as well, and everyone is trying to jump on the bandwagon of e-commerce, of e-groceries, because, like I said, Carrefour has done really well, and some of these online talabat, etc., have done fantastically in COVID. Now everyone and their mother is trying to do e-grocery or something online, and it's creating just a clutter of bad competition. And like Huda said, you really have to be you have to go through a lot of information and be very accurate, and because the execution is not there. And if the execution is not there, it's even worse because they have credit card information and they have. Are you finished with that? I'm sorry. Are you?
Yes, go ahead. Yeah, sure.
Sorry. They have credit card information. They have very sensitive data, which leads into the next subject, if you don't mind.
Mm-hmm.
Hamad, can I go into the next subject?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm with you. We're with you.
With regards to what Talal said about the online medical services, it's very, very important, definitely. And there is one service here some of us might know about it, called El-Tibbi, where it's kind of like WebMD. So it's not as advanced like Talal is saying. It's not like the West or Japan or US.
Dictionary, basically, yeah.
However, it's taken off fantastically during COVID because I mean, I know the owners of it and I think Huda knows it as well. So a trend that is really important, I think that's really surfacing in a very big way now. As of July 9th, Friday, 75% of the companies in the UAE have had cyber attacks.
Okay.
75%. So the amount have had cloud cyber attacks, which is cybersecurity. So now it's very important on the agenda because during COVID, the World Health Organization, globally, the attacks have multiplied, like not like 100, like 15,000 times, 100,000 times. Attacks are becoming far more sophisticated. The hackers are becoming far more aggressive. And the GCC apparently, allegedly, does not have the sufficient, they're not as advanced as they maybe want to be. I mean, this is all, and it's coming up really fast. All of the data, hospital here, which is unnamed, had cyber attack. It's called ransomware. So they stop all the systems. You can't access the data. It's a life or death data for people that are in the hospital or under surgery or whatever. And they won't release the data, these hackers, unless you pay them. So it's called ransomware. I believe, just an intuition and just from what my understanding is, that there's a lot more than they're saying. And globally, if you look at the information, the attackers, the hackers globally and the attacks globally are tremendous since COVID started.
Okay.
World Health Organization, Davos, it was the main thing on the agenda. The UAE government has just set up a certain division, especially for cyber attacks. So it's almost like we're now on the offensive. Mm-hmm. You need to get ahead of the curve.
And we've been behind that curve for a minute, so you're guessing that there'll be aggressive investment in that area going forward.
There's already huge. I'm not guessing. There is already huge agenda from Saudi Arabia and from UAE. There is already they've set up divisions and departments and all of that. I mean, they've been preparing for the past 2 years. But the fact that they've been attacked so heavily, and I'm not saying where and what exactly, but I'm just saying that 75%, it was announced on last Friday, then there seems to be a very eminent requirement.
Mm-hmm. And you see that as a coming area of opportunity that people are going to be moving into?
Already here, we're behind it. We need to get now ahead of it, and how that's going to happen and who's going to do it and why, we're already behind it. It's a requirement. It's not a wish list. You know what I mean? There's a difference.
Gotcha. We're going to move over to Ms. Hassa Jamal Ghareer. You mentioned opportunities in your area as in supplying nearby countries that you haven't thought you would supply to before. So how are you going to navigate to better service that crowd of new customers that you haven't been supplying before?
Different markets have different criteria for their products. So we'll have to learn very quickly about their standards and try to apply them within what we can. But so far, I see a lot of opportunities within COVID. And I think this is efficiencies in supply chains, as Nada has put it.
So when it comes to supply chains, you mentioned a country like Pakistan. Would you be open to maybe expanding that country or maybe creating a regional office there so you can better handle requests, or maybe staying here? And like, how do you navigate that with Pakistan?
No, the lesson we've learned is that we can remotely manage anything now. So all our meetings since the 15th of March have been on Zoom. Mm-hmm. And they've been all very efficient. So I don't think we will go there as an investor or an office, but we will manage our relationships from Dubai.
And that's the way you're going forward with it. Any other opportunities other than these emerging markets that you're seeing in light of the next 3 to 4 to 5 months? How do you see them opportunity-wise?
I don't know. We take the situation month by month.
Mm-hmm.
There's no clarity like this, like they said. But for now, because they're still India is still closed, and all the they are supplying through the Chennai port, not Bombay port.
Okay.
So we don't know what we will do next month. But if India opens,
exactly.
we don't know.
So you don't have a plan in place for when India opens, what's going to be the situation?
We don't know. We don't know. Like Zanzibar was closed for a few months, then it opened. Saudi was closed a little bit for us, and then it opened. Kuwait is still closed, but you can export to Kuwait only via the ports, Kuwait ports. So we're taking it month by month.
Great. Thanks, Hassan.
What about you? What do you think, Muhammad? Yes, we want to know what you think. We want to know what Muhammad Daesh thinks. You tell us what you think.
Exactly, Muhammad Daesh. So Muhammad, jump in. Big boss, tell us what you think.
I think the main objective for all the government here now in the GCC to be self-sufficient for not everything. Most of the things when it comes to food, construction materials, retail product, consumer product, technology. I think that's our mission. And here in Kuwait, we have even a call from the government for initiative to be supportive financially and also with, to ease all the regulation for any initiative that would make Kuwait self-sufficient, especially when it comes to agriculture and food supply. That's one of the main issues here, and we need to be solved within the next few months.
Interesting.
Okay, Mr. Khalid, go ahead.
I think what we should be doing is easing travel between the Gulf states and Saudi Arabia. I don't understand. What's the problem? Why don't we trust each other's health services? Does any party believes that they are superior to the other? We're supposed to be a union. Why should be no travel between each of the GCC countries? Whole of Europe is open to each other, and the United States. This is one sad thing because we're cutting off business, we're cutting off trade, families, and this has to stop. Let's not be tribal anymore. Let's look at the Gulf as one unit. If somebody is sick in Bahrain, there's also somebody sick in Saudi Arabia. We should be able to trust each other's health services and work in one unity. And this will help us.
Sorry to interrupt, Dr. Khalid.
For interrupting, Muhammad. Like we have the Gulf Council, but in reality, there is no action. I feel really sorry. Like when I see the European Union, they open the borders. They have one system for me to get a Washington visa. If Germany say yes, I will be able to go to France. But here in the Gulf region, every country work in totally isolated direction, which I feel really ashamed about it.
I know I completely agreed with both of you. But I think one theme that came out of COVID in general is nationalism. Whether it was in the GCC, whether it was in China, whether it was in the States, people, when the vaccine comes out, people will start fighting on the vaccine. And Ms. Hassa said something that COVID-19 disrupted supply chain. Before COVID-19, everyone used to depend on China on manufacturing. But it showed you that all the countries have nationalism and they care about themselves. It's a very sorry thing that the GCC is not working together, and I completely disagree with that. But it's a theme that we're living in. We're going to live in. Nationalism is going to be stronger and stronger coming in the future, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, again, we are looking at it as nationalism. I call it tribalism. We're not even big enough put together to be a nation. We're a small part of the world. We should grow up. If we want to have a union, let's have a union. Let's have the courage to say, I want to be next to my sister and brother within the Gulf. And I have a daughter who lives in Kuwait, and I haven't seen her for so long. And I have grandchildren. It's a shame. We have businesses across the Gulf, and we want to reach our businesses, and we can't. I mean, how big is Bahrain, and how big is Saudi Arabia, and how big is the rest of the Gulf? Put together, we're like one state in China, of many states. We're not as big as California. We're not as big as other places. Our governments should be able to trust each other's systems and work in concert. It is like somebody being sick in Abu Dhabi or sick in, in Riyadh. It's the same. What is this closure that we have put in our own minds? I mean, it's not even nationalism. I call it tribalism.
You know, I think, if I may add, Hamad, it's so true because I came across this interest. I was looking at a stock, investing, and it was linked to the used car market in the US. And I looked at the price of the US used car market. It's $850 billion. That's bigger than the Saudi GDP. We do not have relevance without unity. Even with unity, we're not that big. But as oil becomes, and we saw what oil in the prices, I think it's very important for us to function as a whole, because relevance, we're not going to achieve it without a small scale and tribal approach.
Ms. Haneen Yunus, you have something, you've been wanting to say something, but you...
No, I'm agreeing. I'm actually agreeing. But I also noticed what Talal said, that it's very true. This nationalism dynamic, it kind of showed like the selfishness of each country in the world. It kind of proved how humans, in the end of the day, even if they're China or America or Japan and they're big countries, they're all little tribes. And in the end, they circulate around themselves when it comes to being harmed, like fight or flight. They will go inward. It's funny how human behavior has really appeared. That's just on a psychological front. I think that nationalism has really come out in a big way. I'm truly surprised, how some are hiding the information they have. They don't want to share it. They want it first, and then they think maybe we can sell it to the world at triple the price. And Bill Gates is in the newspaper every single day with his ideas, and everybody's kind of like, boxing their own ring. And I just find it a bit surprising when there's such a crisis, and it's like, hell.
And let's take it back a step. I think families in the region do not like to share businesses or opportunities with each other. I love what Mr. Muhammad is doing by grabbing a couple of family offices, and they share opportunities with each other. But if you go to other family offices, they do not like to share their books. They do not like to share the opportunities. They have this mentality of, I want to do it by myself. Everything's a secret, and acting like they have a CIA intelligence.
Pentagon intelligence.
Ms. Hassan Kamal Al-Ghareer, what do you think about all of this? Give us your thoughts. You've been awfully quiet.
You mean sharing information from family offices to business to business?
In general, what they've been talking about, if you can give us a quick snippet on the whole thing.
Yeah,
what I think is, تفضل.
One point. This is why I joked and I said I have a big secret about this solar business. It is not a secret. It's a competitive market, and in fact, we should be competing with each other, healthy competition, to grow new ideas and develop it. The only thing that we succeeded in the Gulf and was a disaster is what we call GCC specifications for our imports of cars and trucks. You know how bad idea that was? it restricts our imports of vehicles to 5% of the production of what's available in the world. So, for example, Toyota cannot export more than 5% of its model range to the Gulf because it has to convert them to GCC specs. What is so unique about us?
Sir, you would kill the used car market with the deletion of the GCC specs, because that's what we pay the premium for, the GCC spec.
We are paying 5% to all the industry, and we're being we're hurting ourselves. The models you see in Europe, you don't see them here because they're not allowed to be imported. And whatever is imported is charged onto us in the GCC 5% more to convert. Is this the smartest thing we can unite in? I would have thought by now that they unite their health services. This is livelihood of people. And if our economy would unite. I feel very hurt about this, but this is the truth.
You know, Mr. Zayani, it's the difference between individualism and I think everybody started like that, and then they developed to more community, and then they can develop to more society in different countries. And I'm not saying the West is better than us or we're less than them, but we still have the individual, and we're moving, I think, a little bit slowly more to the more community more, but it's still an individual mentality and versus community and the greater community and all of that. And I don't know what's right and what's wrong, because they're making huge mistakes as well, and we're also suffering from it in many ways. But it's individualism versus the greater good. I think that's the link.
Ms. Hessa, allow me to not put you on the spot with a question.
No problem. I think this is an opportunity to look inward.
Okay.
To look inward as how we do business within the Gulf Cooperation Council. Yani we have the Gulf Cooperation Council. I have to get SASO, and then the importer has to get Saber, and there are many restrictions on raw materials. I can't get my raw materials from Saudi. I have to fly them, ship them from different parts of the world, because Saudi has restrictions on what kind of raw materials. If they have not been treated by a certain percentage in Saudi, then they're not allowed to be exported at all, even though I am a member in the Gulf Cooperation Council. So I think we need to review many of the Gulf Cooperation policies if we want to be stronger.
Can I add a joke here? It's true. We're not allowed to import sand from Saudi.
Yes.
We cannot import sand from Saudi Arabia.
True.
We have a lot of that. If you want, عندنا ربع الخالي. نعطيك إياه.
But what's the
تفضل إذا زعلان كثير تفضل. We'll send it to you.
But what's the reason, Bunawar? Why?
The reason, I don't know. We use
policy
for our construction industry, and then suddenly there is a ban because sand has silica, and maybe they don't have enough silica to cater for the Saudi industry. I don't know.
I can't get gypsum rock, I can't get potash, I can't get a lot of things that are in Saudi Arabia because they're not treated, and they can't be treated. I have to mix them in my facility. So there's no solution to that.
Look, I think regulations, whether it was for sands or raw material or healthcare, I think Saudi needs to work a lot in terms of regulations in healthcare. Just for an example, in our biosimilar factory, we did a collaboration or joint venture with Reliance, a group out of India. We wanted to register the product in India and then bring it to Saudi Arabia because it's biosimilar. It's not a generic product. We stayed 2 years and we paid a lot of money. After we got it registered in India, they said you have to do the whole process again registering the product here in Saudi. So regulations are very decentralized, very old in Saudi. I think the GCC needs to work together to refine these regulations.
So we're going to close on the final question, and that's going to be the final round. How can the family offices cooperate together to get out of this, despite the individualistic nature of this current crisis? How can you guys work together and collaborate to get out of this? I'm going to start with Dr. Khalid Zayani. What's the solution?
Revolution.
Oh my God. Okay, let's turn this down. I hear choppers.
By the way, I have to excuse myself. I have to excuse myself. It's not because I'm afraid of you, Dr. Khalid. I'm very interested in what you have to say, but I really have to get onto another call. I like your revolutionary political agenda. It's very interesting.
No, I'm not causing any anxiety. Otherwise, I may be locked up tonight.
Goodbye, everybody. It was very nice to talk to you.
Bye. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the interesting discussion. Thank you.
No, what I want to say is that we as family businesses, we should sell that idea to the rest of the families within our country and come together afterwards in demanding from our governments to open up our markets. Let us work together. I, as Bahraini, can work in Saudi. Saudi can come here. UAE can go to every market. Kuwait opens up. We're a small country. It's a small region in the world. And we share exactly the same roots and culture. We should be together, not against each other. And this is how we will all grow and how we will be a stronger unit serving our people.
Agreed. Completely agreed with Dr. Khalid. I think to make the ease of flow of information much easier between family offices, Mr. Muhammad continue what they're doing with these sessions and introducing people to each other. This is my recommendation.
So just basically flow of information and putting them together in the same room for an extended period of time.
And partnership. I have a grandfather who likes to do everything by himself. He says, I have the capital, I have the banks, I can do a company by myself. I, as a third generation family member, need to educate the family that partnerships are everything. Take a smaller slice of the pizza, but have a bigger pizza. So partnerships as well.
Okay, moving on to Ms. Hassa Jamal Ghurair. Tell us, how can we overcome this?
I agree with you. Sometimes it's a generational battle. They've done it a certain way, and I think because our families have done it the hard way. So they had to arrange the capital themselves, create industries, and so they don't like to be partners with anybody. But I think now what Muhammad is doing is bringing back this circle of family business, because all the GCC business is built on family relations and trust. And I think you're reintroducing us to everybody whose grandfather knew somebody's grandfather at some point, which I thank you, Muhammad, for doing this and creating this opportunity today.
Okay, with this one, would anyone like to add anything before we end the conversation? Because I think Huda Lawati has just left, right? Yeah, she's left.
It's all Muhammad's fault. I blame Muhammad for everything.
No, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us on this round table. And hopefully we will see each other very soon in Dubai again, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Okay, bye.
Thank you, Bunawaf. يعطيك العافية. Thank you, Talal. Thank you, Hassa.
Thank you.
مع السلامة. شكرا. مع السلامة.
Thank you.
Bye.